Hello everyone, Proelios here, and once again I apologize for the mic quality. I do have a bad mic. I understand it hinders the experience a little bit when the only person speaking on a video has a bad mic. But yeah, let's go with this. This is a very temporary series. So anyway, welcome back to the Problems with Rank mini-series. Proelios here, and in this series we speak about problems in competitive mode associated with ELO hell. So ELO hell is a situation where you're stuck in a particular rank because of factors beyond your control, like other players being toxic, one-tricks, smurfs, and even today's topic, which is disconnects. So I will be speaking about the different kinds of disconnects, why I think Blizzard is not doing a good enough job handling disconnects, and what can be done to make the system a bit better. So, firstly, disconnects, they shouldn't need any explanation. It's simply where a player is removed or removes himself or herself willingly from a competitive match, or basically any online activity. In this case, I'm just talking about ranked. So yeah, when a player is removed or removes themselves from a competitive match before it has ended, that is a disconnect. So there are multiple causes for disconnects, and like I said, there are situations where the player is not at fault, and even in this case, there are two different kinds. So the first one is a server-induced disconnect. So this is simply when Blizzard servers fail or run into a bug or some kind of incorrect code or whatever you like to call it. But anyway, something happens in the server that causes a player or people in a competitive match to disconnect. And in this case, it seems like a small issue, but the player getting disconnected loses 50 SR if they are unable to rejoin the match before it ends. And that is a pretty harsh punishment for someone who was disconnected because your own servers failed, Blizzard, isn't it? So Blizzard really needs to sort this out. Personally in my games, I'm currently in Platinum. I have seen at least one player disconnect every 4 games that I play, or 5 games. Let's make it 5. So every 5 games that I play, and that's that's really bad because firstly, if that player is on your team, then it just makes you lose the game 95% of the times. If your team is extremely talented or is winning anyway, or it was overtime or something like that, then in those scenarios you do have a higher chance of like still being able to counter a 5v6. But generally speaking, that does not happen. So essentially, it sucks when a player on your team disconnects because of a server, especially. And sometimes they will join the match back and they'll be like, "Hey, sorry guys, this is what happened." And in that case, you can do nothing but kind of feel bad for yourself and for that person. When it's someone on the enemy team that gets disconnected, it's all like hurrah and let's celebrate and stuff like that. But again, it's not nice because personally, even when I see a person on the enemy team disconnect, I feel really bad for the 5 other players that were on his team, on their team. And it's like I'm playing this game because I want a fair 6 versus 6 environment where I can learn how to improve and advance in ranks as my gameplay gets better and better, right? I don't want to climb in rank just because there was one unlucky person who was chucked out of the game by a server. That's like it rewards players who may not deserve it, and it may cut the SRs of players who put their heart and soul into that match. I'm not saying this happens every time, but hey, who are we to decide, right? It's in any case, it's unfair for any change in SR to happen if the issue was caused by Blizzard server failing. And in case you are ever disconnected and wonder if your disconnection was caused by Blizzard servers or by your internet connection actually failing, you can simply like switch your window from Overwatch to your desktop and check the icon in the bottom right section. You know like, you know what icon you see in case your internet is off or your DNS has failed or something. And as you can see in the match in the background, Bullman 76 has been disconnected. This this is intentionally why I put this match behind. It's really annoying when this happens. You see, we were going to win that match, and suddenly this guy gets disconnected, and we lose because it's a 5v6. Anyway, moving on. In case it is an ISP caused disconnect, that's your internet service provider. In case the Blizzard servers are on, but you still disconnect, that's just unlucky, feels bad for you. Uh, there's nothing you can really do about that except make sure that your connection is fine before continuing to play or queuing for another match. And in some cases, this can be highly unpredictable, where your ISP kind of just messes up big time and your internet connection keeps going off. So just you'll learn through intuition how to decide whether or not to queue after a disconnect. I can't really explain that for you. You know your internet connection and ISP's patterns to the best, so you're the best judge of that. And uh, in cases like these, you lose SR for no fault of yours, and 5 other players on your team who have put in so much of effort, they'll most likely lose a ton of SR, 20 to 30 SR roughly, if you're in my tier. And that's just a big feels bad. Um, Plus, the players on the enemy team, who will most probably be 6 of them, in case no one's disconnected, they will gain free SR, almost free SR, rather. So, like, it may just be a condition like the one in this match, right, where we were winning, but we lost the fight just because we had one player who got disconnected. And in this case, it was his internet service provider's fault, but he kept rejoining the match because he obviously wanted to keep trying to win until that match got over, and he just left after this one. So that's the best you can do, right? Like this 176, he's a good friend of mine. His internet service provider messed up big time and he kept getting disconnected. But he kept on trying. And what happened? Well, you'll see at the end of the match. Anyway, so we spoke about two types of disconnects that happen because of bad luck. But there's a third type which happens solely because of the player and possibly also because of their teammates, which is a rage quit. And a rage quit is simply when you've just had enough of that match or the people you're playing with in that match and you don't want to play with them anymore for multiple reasons. Maybe you got really toxic or someone else got really toxic and is throwing the game and you just feel tilted and leave. So multiple factors can cause you to rage quit, and in that case it's simply your fault, and it's it it's your fault for compromising your entire team, because even if you even if you rage quit because of your teammates, it's completely on you that their SRs are going to go down. Because sure, they may be toxic, but it shouldn't stop you. It shouldn't. I'm saying it shouldn't because there's some cases where it's inevitable if like all 5 of your team is toxic towards you for no rhyme or reason. Like, I mean, I've never rage quit. I haven't seen many people rage quit, maybe just 2 or 3 in my games. But it was like noticeable that like they were mad all game and then they just leave and don't join the game again. It's noticeable. And again, it's based on your intuition whether to report that player or not for throwing. I can't really teach you how to guess. There's too many factors involved. But yeah, don't rage quit in your games because you will lose 50 SR. The players on your team will lose SR because you got mad and you did something because of some kind of hormonal or emotional reaction, whatever you like to call it. Just don't do that. Even if your team is what caused you to like quit the game. I don't think like maybe like 0.01% of the player base needs to understand why rage quits are bad. Not many people do this. Anyway, so as for the solutions to this issue, for server-side disconnects, I think Blizzard has no mechanism to handle these things. If you are removed because of a Blizzard server failure, which oh, also by the way, don't play during server maintenance because that can cause disconnects, and they do put up a notice in the Battle.net app, and it's pretty visible. So if you queue and enter a game, and then you're like, oh my god, they disconnected me, and now I lose 50 SR, that would be your fault. If you see a notification and still queue for competitive, that's on you. But yeah, if that's not the scenario, and the Blizzard server was just like, shit, I can't keep this play in the match anymore, and it just chucks you out. Oh, also 9000 IQ Reinhardt pin incoming. Watch out in the background. Boom, beautiful, isn't it? I'm very proud of that one. I saw movement do it once on this exact spot, and I was like, I have to try that, and I got to try that. Anyway, so Blizzard needs to have some sort of mechanism to know whether a player disconnect was caused by their own servers. And technology is advanced enough for them to be able to do that. If they made such a complicated game, I'm sure they can code something in the servers so they can note down what exactly happened in a match. And I think there needs to be an SR adjustment system in case the servers are the issue. So what I propose is, and these are just, I haven't worked on these solutions, I haven't worked on the math exactly for a long time, but being a person of math and technology, these are the solutions I've come up with. The first thing Blizzard needs to do is add an SR adjustment for situations where the player is chucked out by a server and is unable to join the match in time. When that happens and the game ends, generally Blizzard just removes 50 SR from that player's account, which isn't fair. Instead, what they need to do is check how much time has been put into the game so far. Until that player got disconnected, I mean, let's say the match lasted for 15 minutes until the point the player disconnected. They need to then divide that by 6, or let's consider 18 for the simplicity of math. 18. They divide that by 6. That's 3 SR. Now they take that 3 SR and give it to every single player that was part of that match, regardless of what happened. And they don't increase or reduce any kind of SR for any wins or losses that occur during the match. And I get it. It may be unfair towards um, unfair towards the team that actually won the match. It may still have been a tough match for them, and the sixth player disconnect towards the end. But this is the only fair issue I can see. Sorry, this is the only fair solution I can see. My bad. So if you give that kind of, even though I said like divide by 6, right? So 18 SR, divide that by 6, 3 SR. So let's say the player who got disconnected in that match, he was 2400 SR. He disconnects because of the server. He logs back in and sees that 3 bonus SR. That's another way he can know that the server caused him to disconnect. And it's kind of an incentive for the player to continue playing, because if Blizzard just straight up cuts 50 SR like right now, I've had this issue twice so far, which is again not a lot of times considering I've been playing for a year now, but it's not fair when you lose that 50 SR. That sucks, and it'll take you about 2 hours to get 50 SR back, and that too if you're consistent, which rarely happens in Overwatch. So you add 3 SR to everybody's accounts, like I said. So your teammates who continued playing the match. Oh yeah, and also give that SR only to the players who stick around till the end of that match, regardless of what happens. So if people stay till the end and they get that 3 SR, they'll be like, oh shit, we should have gained like 30 SR for that win, but we gained just 3. it'll like they'll understand the value of that 3 SR when they themselves face a server disconnect, which God forbid should never happen. But players will appreciate this when they are the victims and kind of rage at it when they are the winning team. But that's something you cannot avoid. Everyone cannot win in this scenario, right? As for the players who are the teammates of the disconnected person, they will gain 3 SR as an apology from Blizzard. Like, feels bad, but here's 3 more SR, we urge you to keep playing. And that's not a lot of SR, but it's something more. If a player is really lucky, let's say they are like 2497, they're in gold, they get 3 SR and they hit plat. Like, alright, now I'm gonna play a lot more Overwatch now. And yeah, that's my first solution. That is, yeah, and the solution is for server disconnect. Now, for ISP or player induced disconnects. Simply any disconnect that doesn't happen because of the server. We can, in technology, we can call these client-side disconnects. So this can be caused because of the player literally leaving the game manually, or it can be caused by the player's internet connection failing. But for whatever reason that happens and the player is unable to join the game again till it ends, I mean, they will get a sort of inquiry from Blizzard the next time they log back in, which will ask them the cause of their disconnect. And the player, here are the options the player will have. Okay, the first option will be an internet failure. This is something Blizzard probably cannot detect with their own servers, and the player gets only 5 chances to select this option per season. And the player, obviously, you can argue that a player will just say that it was an internet failure every single time. Oh, also, my solution was if they have an internet failure and they mark that option, they lose a flat 25 SR. They don't lose 50, they lose 25. And if, I mean, players can cheat their way through this, but Blizzard needs to put some faith in the hands of the player base if they are going to take so much effort to put a trustworthy mechanism into place. Like Blizzard, like trust works both ways, right? We can't trust Blizzard to have good servers and good mechanisms to revert SRs or change SRs for the better and not expect the players to be trustworthy. So it's a question of morals. If you ever lie and if this mechanism ever comes out, will be surprising. If this mechanism ever comes out and if you lie, literally shame on you. Don't ever do that. It's a question of ethics. It's a question of morals. It disgusts me when someone shows immoral behavior anywhere, not just in rank mode. So yeah, like I said, can click this option 5 times per season. If you're experiencing more disconnects, literally you should get your network sorted out. 5 times is actually quite forgiving. I put it a bit high in case it's like something really erratic happens. Then the second option that the player gets is emergency disconnect. And this emergency could be something like a medical emergency, or it could be because like the lights went out. The lights went out in the whole city or something. There was a complete blackout. And these are extremely rare circumstances for which you get an option to use these only once per season. And if you use this, the player will lose no SR for that match for getting disconnected. And yeah, every other player in that match will still get that like minutes divided by 6 compensatory SR, which I spoke about earlier. But yeah, this player will lose no SR if they select this option. And please don't misuse this, treat it like a 911 kind of thing. If your emergency was that bad, only then use it. And Blizzard could possibly have kind of a section where they try and verify if it was actually an emergency. I don't know how they can do that, but anyway. And the third option, which is a really dicey one, but I think it should be there, will be a tilt induced disconnect. And with that option, If the player has genuinely rage quit and they see that option, sure, they can lie their way out of it. But they can also reevaluate if they were right in getting this in getting so tilted that they rage quit. And in case they do admit that they have rage quit, if they do admit that they had rage quit, just remove 50 SR, flat 50 SR. In addition to the previous SR, so they essentially lose 100 SR because they had a tilt induced disconnect. And there will be a fourth option where it's just like none of the above. In that case, you remove that standard 50 SR. So yeah, and players can misuse these options. Also, we won that match, so yeah, that's lovely. Players can misuse these options, but you have to be trustworthy enough, and you have to have good ethics if you want to play this game. Overwatch already has enough people who don't behave well on ladder, and this is a really rare issue. People don't really talk about disconnects. Anyway, if you like what I had to say, like the video, comment if you disagreed, we can have a healthy discussion. What the hell? You can subscribe to my channel in case you want to see the upcoming videos in this series. Not many are left now. Even if you don't subscribe, I mean, you learn from what I had to say, and you will make ranked a better place for yourself and for others. So thank you for that. I will see you in the next video. Don't know what that will be about yet. There are 2 or 3 points left. Anyway, see you.